Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast, episode number 53, The Johnny King Buck with special guest Johnny King, part 2. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hi, I'm Greg Rich with Hunt Masters. You're listening to one of my favorite podcasts on iTunes, the Big Buck Registry, Big Buck Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast. I'm here with my good friend and field correspondent from Ohio, Dusty Phillips. What's happening?
You know, it's, it's good. I woke up this morning. It's a day closer to archery season for whitetails here in Ohio. And I'm pumped up.
How many days? 129 or something like that in 33 seconds?
Yeah. You're real close.
Really?
Real close. Yeah, real close. It's one of the things I look forward to every single year. You know, it can't get here fast enough, but it seems like once it does get here, it's over way too fast.
I agree. It does come and go.
What's going on with you, Jay?
All kinds of good stuff, man. We've got just an amazing guest. This is round 2 of the Johnny King Buck. We had round 1. We had Jay Fish on the Johnny King Buck talking about all the controversy behind trying to get Boone and Crockett to score it the way that we think it should be scored. Buckmasters has deemed the Johnny King Buck the world champ for quite a while. And that was episode 42 if you'd like to hear part 1 of the Johnny King Buck. But this is part 2 with Johnny King himself telling the story exactly as the hunt unfolded, all the things he was wearing, the things he ate for breakfast, who he is with, play by play, step by step, how that hunt went down that day. And we got the man himself, Johnny King.
We've wanted to hear the story from Johnny King ever since that we got with Jay Fish talking about him owning the buck now. It's going to be a phenomenal story, and man, I look forward to hearing it.
Me too. Let's get Johnny on the phone right now.
Absolutely. Let's call him up.
Johnny King, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We're psyched to have you. You're like a legend, man.
I don't know if I'd go that far.
Jay told us you're a little mild-mannered.
Yeah.
I can see that. You know, we're not trying to make you out to be Superman, but you shot one heck of a big deer, Johnny.
And I appreciate that.
Let's get into a little bit about you. Where are you from?
I'm originally from Platteville, Wisconsin. Far southwest area of Wisconsin.
Gotcha. And is that big deer country?
Yeah, yep. From where I shot the deer, it's probably about a half an hour, 40 minutes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So you grew up there as well?
Yeah, yep. Well, not on the family farm. The family farm is where I shot the deer, and that's in Fenimore, Wisconsin.
Okay. How far from where you were?
About a half hour, 40 minutes, where I grew up, yeah. So
Gotcha.
It was relatively close. Yep.
Gotcha. All right. What was life like growing up in Wisconsin?
I don't know anything different, so it's great.
It's great. You had a good childhood, and you enjoyed it there. You enjoyed being outdoors.
Yeah.
Was the outdoors always part of your life, or something you got into later in life?
Always kind of apart from being younger. I mean, my dad wasn't a huge hunter, but my mom's side of the family, that's where the family farm was. And they were, I wouldn't say like big hunters, not like today's standards, but when it came gun season, you know, they lived for it. Not bow hunting, you know, they would do squirrel hunting and grouse, and we did a lot of coon hunting when I was younger.
Gotcha. So you learned about the outdoors from
basically my uncles and my brother. My brother's 5 years older than me.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Very cool. And the family farm. Tell us about the family farm a little bit.
My grandpa purchased it in the early 1950s, and my Uncle Pat, he still lives there today. He bought it from my uncle, dairy farm. Originally, the farm was 200 acres, and it's just like one of those places. It's kind of hard to explain, but not living there, and there's just so many memories of being there. It's almost like sacred ground. I mean, because like you can go anywhere on the farm, and it's just like, you know, tell stories of, you know, what happened at that point.
Gotcha. Johnny, what do you do for a living?
I'm a project coordinator for a restoration company.
Okay.
So basically, we do a lot of fire and flood damage, basically anything insurance related.
Gotcha. Yep. I understand that profession. I have friends that do that in the New Hampshire area. So, yeah, I totally understand what you're doing. Excellent.
Thank you.
Tell me about deer hunting. You deer hunt where you live, and where you live today, is it far from the family farm?
From where I live now, it's about an hour. I live in Mount Horr, Wisconsin currently.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Now, what year was the king buck harvested?
In 2006.
2006. Can you take us back in time and tell the story about how that whole hunt unraveled and go back to the point of preparation? Like start at the very beginning. Was there any kind of lead up to this hunt that year?
It's always kind of a tradition. We always go to my mom's, me and my brother. My brother lives about 20 minutes from me, and we always hook up in the mornings, and we always go to mom's. She always gets up and makes us breakfast, and that's usually about 5 o'clock.
Okay. So you're eating breakfast around 5 o'clock?
I'm going hunting with him.
I like this. I like where this is going already. So 5 o'clock
breakfast before we head out.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Johnny King, I'm hunting with you this year.
All right. It's a tradition.
And
So
that's before sunup?
Yeah.
Sunup is about what time during the fall? 6:30.
6:30.
All right. So you're an hour and a half before sunup. You're eating breakfast. I like where this is going already. What are you having for breakfast?
Oh, geez. She usually makes, eggs and bacon, sausage, hash browns, good breakfast.
Gotcha. Does she prepare any of those foods a specific way?
No, she just gets up and makes it, moms.
Gotcha. They got their own way of doing things. And
and
because they've been doing it, you wouldn't know it any other way. Is it the best breakfast on the planet?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I might hear this, so yes. Yeah, it's the best.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So while she's making breakfast, I'm usually sitting there with my stepdad and having coffee, and we're talking. And
okay. All right. How do you take your coffee, Johnny?
Black. Yep.
Black. Beautiful. Like it. So you're drinking black coffee, having breakfast, 5 o'clock in the morning. In a traditional sense, this is like the day that's similar to any other day that you hunt with your family.
Opening day is a big day.
Okay.
You can't sleep the day before, and you're just all excited to get there. And my brother's kind of a procrastinator, so it's like we're done eating breakfast, and I'm like, we got to go. And it's like, come on. So yeah, so we finally get in the truck, and by the time we actually finally got to my uncle's farm, daybreak was starting to come up.
Okay.
So we didn't get to our stands, and it's not traditional stands like what we hunt. We just sit on the ground. We got like landmarks, like the Twin Oaks or the Pine Knob and things like that. So,
sure.
We just kind of have our little spots, and we just find our place and sit down.
How many acres are we talking about?
Originally my uncle's farm was 200, but now he sold 100, so we hunt 100 acres.
Okay.
Yep.
And in 2006, was it 100 or 200?
It was 100.
It was 100. All right. So you're hunting 100 acres on the family farm in Wisconsin.
Yep.
Breakfast, solid hunter's breakfast. You get into the farm, the sun's coming up. What happens next?
Well, we're getting our clothes on, and my uncle, Dale, that doesn't own the farm but hunts down there, it was daybreak, and he already had a 6-pointer down in the field, just right by the barn. My uncle's land is kind of surrounded by, it's like in the valley, and there's woods all around it and fields, and basically that's one of the stands, just out past the granary, people just kind of sit there on a stump and just wait for the deer to cross the field.
Gotcha. And Johnny, what day was this?
November 18th.
November 18th, 2006. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
All right, so you got
of course,
one buck down. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, my uncle's giving us a hard time. Where you guys been? I already got my deer. So we're getting our clothes on.
As uncles will do.
Oh yeah.
When you say you're getting your clothes on, what are you wearing to head out to the woods, Johnny?
Well, we just kind of wear our regular clothes down, and then just on our orange suits, orange jacket, finish getting everything out, get the guns out, get them loaded.
Awesome.
Gotcha. So nothing, not like any special scent preparation or anything, just the stuff you're going to wear.
No, we're old school. Yep. So at that point, we get our clothes on, and then we walk to our stands, and we usually regroup about 9:30, and this is, 6:45, 7 o'clock, so we're getting a late start already, and we sit there for a couple hours. I didn't get anything that morning, so we regroup about 9:30, and everybody, just kind of tells what they've seen and or what they got, have a little something to eat, and then we plan our drives at that point. So then we start driving after we sit for a couple hours in the morning.
Gotcha. And what's going on at this point? Is there anything happening that you can see, or is it just kind of quiet?
Kind of a cloudy, overcast day.
Okay.
Sun wasn't, out very bright or anything. Just kind of a cloudy, overcast day. And we decided to drive the Pine Knob was our first drive. That's the closest to the farm, this first set of woods that are closest.
Okay.
And basically what it is it's basically just a big hill. And it's flat on the top, and it's probably only about 10 acres. Not even 10 acres. I would say it's probably 2 acres up top.
Okay.
But it's pretty steep to get to that point.
Gotcha. And how many people are involved in this point?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 of us.
So you got a 6-person drive that's about to occur.
Correct. Yeah. But only one person has to drive it, and that's always me because I'm the youngest.
Gotcha.
So everybody lines up around the basically the knob, get in the back, which draws they're going to come out of, and then the back, the other route down the road or whatever if they come out. Just a gravel driveway, basically.
Okay. So
I go up and do the drive. Go ahead.
You've got sitters surrounding this area in known spots where the deer could run out, and then you're the flush dog. You're going in.
I'm going in. Yep.
Right. What kind of?
I like driving those woods because I know where they lay, so I can usually get them out.
What kind of terrain are we talking about? What kind of wood? What kind of trees? What kind of terrain? Hilly, up and down, flat? What are we talking about?
Oh, it's pretty hard getting up it. I mean, it's pretty steep. I mean, it's not like you need a rope or anything, but no, it's by the time you get to the top, you're pretty tired.
Okay.
Rocky terrain, and then we call it pine knob because on top it's all pines, and then some oaks.
Okay, gotcha. And so you're coming up from the backside, trying to push them out to all your stand. Okay, gotcha. All right, so you head into the woods. What happens next?
That was kind of a dud. Got out there, I didn't kick anything off that morning. So then basically the drive only takes me about 10 minutes once I actually get to the top, and then we regroup down at the building again. Gotcha. Because basically it's that close to the farmhouse. And we decided to go up and drive another parcel, which isn't part of my uncle's farm, but the landowner lets us hunt it.
Okay. So drive number one's a dud. Nothing happens.
Drive number one's a dud. So this is probably, by the time we got done having a little snack and whatever, it's about 11 o'clock in the morning.
11 o'clock. All right. So half the morning's gone. More than half the morning. Half the day's gone. You have your uncle's giving you hell because he's already shot a deer and you haven't. And drive number one's a dud. No deer came out, no bucks, no does.
Did you hear him? He said they had snack time.
They had snack time. All right. What'd you have for a snack?
I can't remember. Probably some venison. Like salami or something like that.
Gotcha. Little charcuterie of some sort.
Or sandwich, yeah.
I'm doing that. I'm doing that now. Snack time while you're hunting.
Because Johnny, what I'm trying to do is to recreate the hunt for me, so that I can shoot a big deer in the fall. I'm going to eat what you ate. I'm going to eat what you snacked on. I'm going to get there at the same time of day. I'm going to recreate it, but in my own environment. So that's what I'm going to try to accomplish, and I think other people will too. So, all right. So you had a snack, and then what happened after that?
So then after that, we actually have to drive to this woods. It's only probably a half a mile up the road. So we all get in the trucks. And at this point, like I told you before, I'm always the driver. And for some reason that day, my brother goes, "Hey, Johnny, why don't you go sit down on this one?" So I'm like, sure, because I don't like driving this set of woods. I mean, it's like thorny, multicolored roads. I mean, this drive takes about an hour and a half.
Gotcha. How old are you, Johnny, by the way?
I'm 41.
41. Okay, so you're 41. So you're hunting with guys that are older than 41.
Oh, yeah. I got one of my uncles was in the 70s, the other, in the 60s. Yeah. Yeah. But my brother is 5 years older than me.
All right. So you got a big, long line of tradition here with several hunters been doing this a long time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. So you're rounding up and you get to sit this time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Pretty excited.
I bet. Now,
because we usually get deer off this drive, and to kind of picture it, it's an L-shaped wood.
Okay.
And we start in the long part of the L and then bring the finger back, basically. And I'm at the end of the finger.
Got it.
Where they're going to come out, if that kind of gives you the picture.
Yep. They're trying to hug the woods all the way through until they got nothing left.
Yep. And these woods aren't very thick either. I mean, they're thick, but they're not big. So basically, you got a guy on the top, a guy on the bottom, and a guy that goes through.
Gotcha.
And then we had 3 standers.
Okay. Got it. All right. So you got the same crew that you did on round 1, and you've got round 2 set up. You're sitting, you're waiting. It's 11 o'clock-ish at this point?
11 o'clock we're getting set up. Yep.
All right. And how far is this from the original drive?
That's a crow flies, quarter mile.
Quarter mile. All right. Gotcha. So everybody's set up. The pushers are starting in. What starts to...
Well, actually, they're not even set up. So I'm walking down, and basically I leave the truck by the road, and I'm walking down because it's an open hayfield. It's next to the road, and there's like telephone poles. And I always go down, or whoever sits there sits on the second telephone pole because you're up on a ridge and you can walk kind of both draws.
Yep.
So I walk through the first draw, and I get to the second, up to the top, and I just sit down at telephone pole and just kind of getting situated, have my bottle of water, just kind of looking around, take my bullets out of my pocket, set them on the ground, and all of a sudden I look to my right, and the deer, the king buck, actually came from the woods behind us into the woods we were driving.
Interesting.
In front of you, so you can see this.
It was to the right of me, but I only had a window that I saw him for like 20 yards, and then he was on the other side of that draw where I couldn't see him. And at that point, I could not see him until he actually got up into the woods in front of me.
Okay. And what were you thinking at that point? What were you feeling? What was your emotion at that point? when you first saw the rack?
I'm like, this is the biggest thing I ever got. I just got to get this one. You got to get this one.
How far was the king buck from where you were when you first spotted it?
About 150. Well, when I first spotted him, probably about 50 yards.
50 yards.
Where he ended up, yep. And then he went up into a woods, not a thick woods. At the very end of it, the woods kind of clears out, and it's, random trees, more than a pasture, and he's about 150 yards at that point.
Gotcha. So he went from 50 to 150 to your right.
Well, straight ahead of me now. He was to my right, and then he kind of ran up the hill and then went into the woods to my left, so then he's actually straight in front of me.
Right to left, and the woods that he's now in are the deer woods that you're about to drive with your uncles.
Correct.
Got it.
So the drivers at this point are just getting out of the truck at the other end.
Gotcha. So this deer is closer to you than it is to them already.
Oh, yeah. By
a long shot.
And he stops. And he's facing, all I could see was his chest and his rack.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, two heads pop up behind him. So those doe, I didn't see him go through. They must have already been in there, and he was chasing them.
Yep.
That's why he went kind of back behind me, because the time that it took me to get to my spot, he had to have watched me walk through there.
Right.
He was in that other set of woods.
Do you think you disturbed him, and that's what caused him to move?
I think he just wanted those does. I mean, to be honest with you, because I'm like, it was a matter of like a minute, and I'm sitting down and looking to my right, and there he is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he knew they were over there, and he needed to pursue them, and he didn't care that you were there.
I don't think he did.
Not so much.
No.
Okay. Gotcha. So you can see him out at 150 out to your straight ahead.
Yeah.
What does he do?
So
he turns?
He just turns, looking straight ahead at me, and at that point, I'm still sitting up against my back's up against the telephone pole. I'm sitting on the ground, and I'm like, I just got to get it. So I put the gun on my knee, and I just took careful aim. And as soon as I shot, I could see, I knew I hit him because he kind of reared back and kind of stumbled.
Yeah.
But he didn't really move at that point. He just kind of stood there.
Huh.
So at that point, I shot a couple more times.
So can you slow down that moment? So you shot, you saw him stumble.
Yep.
And what kind of firearm are you carrying?
I got a 30-30 Savage bolt action.
Okay. And are you using a scope or open sights?
Open sights.
Okay. So you got a 30-30 open sights at 150 yards.
Yep.
And you're sitting down against a telephone pole, and you let one fly. He stumbles, and then you reload immediately.
Correct. Yep.
You re-aim. And where was the second shot?
He was kind of the side at that point.
Okay.
And I shot again. I wasn't sure if I hit him that time because there wasn't like the movement that I seen with the first shot.
Yep.
And then he kind of went behind some trees. I couldn't really see him. And I think it's kind of hard to remember all that stuff going on. But
sure.
I think I shot one time at that point. And at that point, I couldn't see him. And I wanted to get to and like I said, it's hard for you guys to understand, but the finger comes out and there's draws on both sides. And I knew he was heading towards the drivers. So at that point, I wanted to get as close to him as I could because I wanted to make sure he didn't run out the back draw.
Okay. Right.
So at that point, I started crawling on my hands and knees, and between the woods that he came out of and the woods that he was in, it's like set-aside grass. So the grass was probably 3 or 4 feet tall.
Wow.
So at that point, I start crawling on my hands and knees, didn't want him to see where I was coming, and then about every 20, 30 yards, I would pop my head up to kind of see where he was. And then if I could see him, I would take a shot at him.
So you've got some tall grass. I mean, you don't have to get down too low. You can kind of make your way through.
Yeah.
But you're how far? So you're trying to get a little closer. You're walking through this tall grass, and you pop up here and there, just to see if you can see him at that point.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it. And do you see him at all as you're moving through?
I probably did that 2 or 3 times, and like I said, it's it all happened so fast. But
sure.
A couple of times I know I did, and that the last time I finally reached the fence line, and I'm about probably. I'm like, all right, I got to get over this fence quick because I know he's going to come out. And as soon as I stood up, he started going kind of broadside to the left of me. And I shot, and all of a sudden he was gone. So I thought, oh, my God, I got him. So I jumped the fence, and I run up because I have to run up a hill to see where he went over that draw.
Yeah.
And when I get there, I didn't see him. But I knew he didn't run out the bottom because the time frame that went by, I would have seen him because it's a pretty open field.
Right.
So at this point, I'm kind of freaking out. I'm, heart pumping.
Sure.
You're like, tired. I'm just crawling through all that stuff. And
gotcha. And
I'm at a good point now because I can watch both draws, and the drivers are coming, and we got them surrounded on the other side.
Gotcha. And how much time has elapsed from the time you first shot to this point?
I'd say maybe 5-10 minutes, somewhere in that.
Oh, wow. So that's fast. You're moving quick.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. All right. So the drivers are starting to come in. They've got it.
And all this time I must have shot probably 6-7 times. So they're like wondering,
they know something's going on.
Yeah, they know something's going on because I can see them at that point, and then they can see. Well, they're thinking in their heads, well, why is Johnny standing on that ridge?
Right.
He's not supposed to be there. So I wait there, for probably an hour because, like I said, that it takes a long time to get through these woods.
Sure.
Yep. And at that point, all of a sudden, he starts running back at me. He was laying down in the woods, and the driver's keeping back up.
Aha. Gotcha. And how far away? Did you see him stand up?
I seen him run out.
You saw
I
him
couldn't
run out.
actually see him stand up.
Okay.
But
You saw him
I seen
running.
him run out. He got into the back end of the clearing. He sees me, kind of puts the brakes on a little bit, and then starts running down the hill. So I shoot at that point, and I can't see him. I'm like, all right, I got to get him this time. And remember the grass. So I'm thinking, well, geez. So I run to that point because I can't see. I mean, the grass wasn't 4 feet all over the place, but I'm like, I can't see him running. So I get to that point, and then he's running down the hill away from me. So I see him at that point.
Okay. And how far away?
Oh, I would say probably 75 yards at that point.
All right, so he's pretty close at this point, but he's running.
Yeah.
Full run, like he's got to get the heck out of there kind of thing, or just kind of a...
Oh, no. I knew he was hurt. He was hurt.
He's hurt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He wasn't moving very fast. He didn't want to go uphill. He wanted to go downhill.
Gotcha. So he's going as fast as he can, but he can't move that fast.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. And he's moving away from you at this point?
Yep, basically straight downhill.
Straight downhill. Gotcha. And you're watching him at 75 yards run straight downhill away from you.
Yep.
And do you have any obstructions in your way? Is there the grass too tall, or you got a good clear shot?
You got the grass, but I got a clear shot.
Okay. All right. What happens next?
I shoot, and he falls down again.
Gotcha.
And then I start running down after him, and then to my surprise, he gets up again. And at this point, he's running. There's a fence line at the bottom of this hill, and he can't jump it. So he runs with the fence line back towards the woods that the guys were driving.
Yep. And
then at this point, I found out that I'm out of bullets because I kind of wear an old suit, and as I'm reloading and things like this.
So you've got 7 rounds fired off at this point, right?
I would say 7, 8, 9. I mean, it's quite a few.
You're out of bullets.
I was going to ask if you had like a case of bullets with you.
No. So at this point, my cousin Brad's he's flanking the bottom.
Okay.
So I start yelling at my cousin Brad. I'm like, Brad, I'm out of bullets, and he's running down the hill. I'm running towards the deer. I'm like, Brad, just, you got to shoot him. So Brad, he aims, fires, and the deer drops.
Got it.
So he's running down the hill. I'm running, along the fence line. We finally get to the deer. And at that point, we're both out of breath and just looking at him like, oh my God, this thing is amazing.
Right.
Never seen anything like this in my life.
So you're standing over the deer. Is the deer fallen at this point and he's done?
Yep.
And what are you doing? Are you looking at each other like, oh my God, or just staring at the deer like you can't take your eyes off
Yeah,
him?
I just kind of walked around it a couple times and was just looking at it.
Okay.
Yeah?
And what are you saying to each other? Anything? Or are you quiet?
Kind of quiet. Just like, oh man, that is amazing. That's a big buck. And, well, where'd you come out? Stuff like that. Where'd you first see him? Or, is that what you were shooting at the whole time? That kind of thing.
Sure. So just kind of a recap of what just happened kind of thing.
Yep.
Now, at that point, did you realize did you think that this was the biggest buck you'd ever seen at that point?
The biggest deer I've ever seen. Yeah.
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 And you're out of bullets. You're standing there. You're probably sweating at this point. What was the temperature like at that point?
I think that day was in the high 30s.
High 30s. Okay.
Yep.
And so that's pretty, if you're moving around, that's a comfortable temperature. You probably worked up a good sweat chasing this buck around.
Oh, yeah. By that time, we're undoing the zippers, getting some air.
Right. Yeah. You're all worked up. You're out of breath. Your emotions must be going crazy.
Yep.
And you're standing there with the buck. And what are the other drivers starting to come out at this point?
No, just me and Brad.
Just you and Brad. Gotcha.
Yep. So I'm kind of looking at it. I kind of noticed something, on its rack. It kind of looks like a moss or something got stuck in it or whatever. And at that point, I set my gun down. And I'm kind of looking at it, and Brad set his gun down. So Brad kind of straddles the deer from like holding its rack, straddling the deer as it's on the ground. So he's just holding it, looking at it, moving it back and forth, admiring it. And I walk around and to where the deer could see me, and to our amazement, the deer was still alive. So at that point, the deer went to get up, and Brad's sitting on its back. So it kind of did this last lunge kind of thing. And as that happened, Brad went to just, reaction to jump off the deer. And at that point, he's holding half the rack in his hand.
He's holding half the rack.
He's holding half the rack in his hand.
What happened there?
One of my last shots, and I didn't know it, when it was running away from me, I actually shot through the main beam.
Oh, wow. No kidding.
So I'm looking at Brad going, oh, my God, what happened? What'd you do?
Brad, what did you do to my deer? Brad.
Yeah.
Brad's now not your friend.
This is not a funny trick, Brad.
Yeah.
Right.
So at that point, we had to put the deer down. It was still alive. We thought it was dead.
Yep.
So Brad put the final shot in it, And then at that point, when the deer was finally dead, we took the rack and put it back on there. And then that moss or whatever I thought I saw was actually the shatter or where the bullet hole went through. It was a clean break. Yeah. So it almost made it look gray. It didn't like shatter it. I mean, because it was almost like a finger joint in the board is how it broke off. I mean, you could stick it right back on there and it was there. It just had a perfect bullet hole through it with some fragments gone. And when I first saw it, because it had a real dark rack, the fragments, when they were gone, gave it a gray look.
Gotcha. Interesting. Had anybody seen this deer at any point in the area prior to this day that you're aware of?
Yes, because the guy that actually saw it, his house isn't that far away, and he kind of watched the whole hunt go down. He was bull hunting it, but didn't tell anybody. Yeah, he actually had it within 50 yards with a bull.
Oh. And how long before this hunt occurred had he...
I shot it November 18th, within 3 weeks.
Gotcha. So he was close.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Gotcha. So you've got a broken rack here, and you kind of fit it back on. What are you thinking at that point? You're freaking out because you just ruined a rack, or like, what's going through your mind at that point?
Well, kind of, but we never had a deer scored ever in my life.
Right.
We just counted points. We nice 6-pointer, nice 8-pointer. That was our scoring system.
Sure.
So at that point, I didn't know if we could ever get it scored, and so, I mean, we talked about it at that point, well, what do you think? And what do you think it would score? But none of us knew anything about scoring.
Right. So scoring, I mean, you weren't thinking scoring. When you shoot deer, traditionally, you don't think, hey, let's get it scored. Is that the way things
I don't think
occurred?
Anybody in my family's ever had a deer scored.
Okay.
Except this one. Yeah.
You just know it's a point system, and that's it. No, scoring was not important at that point.
No. I mean, everybody in the family's got a nice deer on their wall. But, look at my 11-pointer, look at my 12-pointer. It's not like, hey, that's a 167 or a 170. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's a nice rack.
Gotcha. So nice rack, scoring systems mean nothing to you at this point?
Nope, nothing.
Okay.
Nope.
But there's some chatter about this deer at this point as people are starting to see it. You're talking a little bit. Maybe we should have it scored. Looks like it's a big deer.
Well, actually, I didn't think I could get it scored with the break, and even 6 weeks after that, I wasn't going to get it scored, and my brother actually talked me into taking it somewhere.
Gotcha. All right, so of the 9 bullets that were fired at the Johnny King buck,
well, I would say there's probably closer to 12.
12. All right, 12 bullets that were fired at the Johnny King buck. How many actually connected? Were you able to find 12 holes?
7.
7 holes in the Johnny King buck.
Yep.
And it was
like Buckzilla. Keep going after 7 rounds.
It was the toughest deer I've ever seen.
Wow.
Just lay down. Yeah.
As far as like the body size, was it big? Was it thick, or was it just a normal sized deer?
No, it was a big deer. I mean, because we got another, a nice deer. It was an 8-pointer, nothing huge, but we had them both hanging in the barn next to each other.
Yeah. And
the 8-pointer was, I would say, 16 inches off the floor. And this deer, couldn't even get the rack off the ground. So it was a big deer.
Oh, wow. So, an 8-pointer, a healthy 8-pointer, it sounds like, which is a big deer. This deer was another 16 inches, 17, 18 inches longer.
I would say.
Wow. That's a monster. Did you have it weighed by any chance?
No, I never did. Everybody always asks me that. I wish I would have. And
Gotcha.
That's another thing. On the East Coast, that's the big thing, weighing the deer. We never had a deer weighed either.
Right.
We were kind of curious, though, because this was on Saturday. On Sunday, I called around to a couple butcher plants wondering if I could bring it in, just to get weighed. And no, everybody said no. So at that point, I got to go to work on Monday, so we decided to keep it out.
Gotcha. All right. So if you had to put a weight on it, knowing what you know now.
I'm not a really good judge.
Okay. All right.
I would say 210.
Okay.
I don't know, 20. I have no idea because I've never really weighed one to compare it.
Sure. Okay. But north of 200, it's fair to say.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. So you cape it out, and what do you do with the cape and the rack at that point?
At that point, I just put it in the back of my truck.
Yep.
And then at that point, I stopped at my mom's to show them on the way home. And my little nephew took a picture with it. And then I took it home, and it was kind of a little bit cooler, that Monday. So I didn't have freezer space big enough. So I just kind of let it sit in the garage overnight.
Sure.
And then when I went to work on Monday, I was just asking around where to take it.
Gotcha. And you brought the carcass to the butcher to get carved up, or did you do it yourself?
No, we do our own meat.
You do your own meat. Okay. So you're doing your own meat. You did it did you do it on Monday? Did you cut it up on Monday, or did you let it hang for a little while?
No, we actually cut the deer up on Sunday.
Sunday.
Basically what we do when it's in the barn, we just quarter it, and then we put that in coolers.
Yep.
And then we take it to our own houses. So on Monday night when I got home, because I didn't do it on Sunday, I was going to cut the deer up.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So you split it up. You share the meat kind of stuff.
Yep.
Great system. Gotcha. Dusty, what kind of questions do you have about Johnny King up to this point?
I'm going to kind of go back just a little bit. You know, when did it occur to you from like just at this point of the story that it was an absolute giant? Did you realize that when you shot the deer that day right there in the field?
Oh, I knew it was big. I just had no idea it was that caliber.
Right.
No
So
idea.
the visual didn't give you the idea that it was that caliber.
No. I
Right.
just knew it was the biggest thing me or my family's ever seen.
Right. And when you seen that deer for the first time looking down the gun barrel, what was your thoughts? That exact moment when you was looking down the sights, what was you thinking?
I'm like, I got to get this deer because nobody's going to believe me. That was my biggest thing. I wasn't like sweating or everybody asked me like, were you just like freaking out? And I'm like, I was pretty calm at that point. But when I knew I first hit it, then at that point, now it's on. Now I got to get him.
Were you able to kind of put yourself in that mental zone where you have to slow things down in order to take a good shot?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I mean, I was in a good position. It would have been different if I was standing up, but
Yeah.
I had my back up against the post already. I had my knee up. The gun was on it, and just basically put that bead in there and squeeze the trigger.
Gotcha. So you took the hunter's shot basically, and you were in a good shooting position, so you knew you had a good shot to take
Right.
at that point. Got it.
Yep.
So the antlers are in the back of your truck at this point. You've got the quartered up piece. Which piece did you take home?
Well, me and my brother were cutting ours up, and he shot a buck too. So he actually took his deer and put it in his cooler, and I took my deer and put it in my cooler.
Gotcha.
So we each had our own deer.
You did. Gotcha. And your family must have seen some big bucks over the years, not just, obviously not as big as this one, but you've seen big bucks.
Oh yeah.
Right. You're hunting Wisconsin. There's big deer in Wisconsin, and you must be semi-used to seeing big deer year to year, just not this one.
Yep. I mean, I've seen a lot of nice deer.
Gotcha. Now the rack's in the back of your truck. It's still broken at this point, right?
Correct. Yep. So basically, they got the head laying there, and the other part just kind of folded over it. It's sitting in the back of my truck.
Okay.
Yep.
And what are your thoughts at this point? Is it time to go back to work and we'll deal with this antler thing later, or this is a priority now?
No, I went to work the other day and, told my boss, well, I actually called him, I think, when I got back that Sunday, because he knows taxidermist. I really didn't know anybody, and I just asked him, and, I'm like, I shot a really big deer, and he goes, well, I'll take to this guy. So he gave me the number, and, I don't think I called him that day. I just took the deer to his place.
This is to the taxidermist friend of yours?
Correct. Yep.
And who is this taxidermist, and where is he located?
Middleton, Wisconsin.
Okay. How far from you?
Middleton is about a half an hour.
Okay. So you drive half an hour with the rack, and what do you say to the guy?
Well, I just called him up and told him that I was going to drop the deer off, and he said, well, I don't know if I'll be home, but my wife will be there.
Okay.
So he wasn't there when I got there. So I carried it in, I think I had, in a big bag.
Yep.
And take it down. He's got some freezers down in the basement, and we put it in the freezer, and his wife goes, wow, that's a nice one. And I'm like, yeah, it's great. So we put it in there.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's all right.
Yeah, it's not bad. You got a nice one there. Oh, what happened to the rack? That kind of thing. But
Yeah.
put it in there, and I left. Went back to work, and then I think at that evening I went home and started cutting up the meat.
Gotcha. So the king antlers are in the freezer at the taxidermist. And
Correct.
what is the idea? What are you trying to accomplish with the taxidermist at this point?
Well, I didn't have the freezer space. I didn't know what to do with the rack, so I wanted to at least get it somewhere at that point.
Yep. So it's the idea is to have him fix the rack at that point, or just wanted to get it out of your house because you didn't have room for it.
I didn't have room for it. I didn't know if he could fix it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And he was gone that day, and I can't remember that exact conversation that we had. When we finally saw it.
Sure. But the goal was to see if he could fix it. That's more or less what it's there for.
Yep.
When he gets time to deal with it.
Yep.
How much time passes between when you drop it off and the next conversations that you started having with your taxidermist?
Well, I think what he did is he just took it out of the freezer and then took the rack off. And then I can't remember if he didn't feel comfortable with fixing it. I think that might have been the case. So I basically just kind of had it at home at that point.
Okay.
Just the rack itself, showing people. He still had the cape.
Right.
Called around to a couple of people. I took it down to some people, things like that. Took it to a place, and I can't remember the name, but about 40 minutes from here.
Okay.
The guy was really interested in doing it, but I didn't actually have him do it.
So you're looking to have a
I didn't want
mount.
anything.
You're trying to get a mount done at this point?
No, this is probably about 5-6 weeks after.
Okay.
Well, no, probably 3-4 weeks after. And I didn't want to do anything with it until I knew if I was going to get it looked at to see if it could be scored.
Gotcha.
And my brother talked me into it, so I made the call and called the guy, and we set up an appointment.
Yep.
And I took the rack home.
Gotcha. And he's saying that it could be scored at this point. This new, is he a taxidermist?
No, I actually took it to a scorer at this point.
You found a scorer. All right. Where was the scorer located?
In Baraboo, Wisconsin.
All right. And did they said that even with the broken rack, it could be scored that way? Or what was the conclusion to that?
He thought it. He scored it as if it was. Well, let me back up.
Sure.
He wasn't 100% sure. He said Boone and Crockett going to have to make the final decision on the break.
Okay.
But he still did score it. I think it was. I can't remember exactly, but it was after the 60-day drying period. I think it was like day 62 or something like that.
Yeah. So he attempts to score it and comes up with a score. And scores, because you've never had bucks score before, did it mean anything to you what the number was?
No, because he kind of explained everything to me, how he was measuring it, because I told him I wasn't familiar with how they were doing it. And just because it was broke, I actually had to kind of help him hold it so he could get some of the measurements. But at one point into the scoring, he goes, "Do you realize what you have here?" And I said, "No, not really." And he goes, "You potentially could have the new world record." So then it hit me, because then, I'm driving home calling my wife saying, I could have a new world record, call my brother, and, it all depends, how the break is. So
sure.
Yeah, he wrote down some scores, not an official score sheet or anything like that.
Yeah, just a general score, what he thought it might measure.
Yep.
So how does that kind of compute in your head at that point? He's telling you that you've got a potential world record here. What does that mean to you at that point? It sounds pretty good, but what does it mean anything? Does it really resonate with you?
I don't think it really did. I mean, it was just it's really cool to tell people, I shot a world record deer.
Yep.
I was pretty excited, but it wasn't, I guess I can't describe the feeling.
Yeah.
Excitement,
but you don't really even know what it means, right? It's like,
right.
It's cool.
No clue, because I wasn't one of the guys that, had 20 trail cameras and watched outdoor channels all the time. I didn't know who the big hunters were. I knew of Boone and Crockett, wasn't really familiar with it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. It was just a by chance situation, and you were about to get introduced to the world of record buck scoring at that point,
correct.
Right?
Yep.
That was the beginning. What happened next?
John says, well, kind of keep this quiet, the original score.
Yeah.
He says, I'm going to give a number to a guy, and he's going to be in contact with you.
Okay.
Yep.
And how long from that point?
I would say he contacted me maybe within a week.
Okay.
Yep.
And what was that conversation about?
He wanted to come down and see the deer, because
Okay.
John kind of told him a little bit about it. They had their conversation. He just called me and says, when can we hook up? I'll come down and look at it, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. And who is he? Is he a representative of some institution or?
Steve Ashley was
Okay.
his name. He was I'm not sure if I know he was part of the Wisconsin Buck and Bear Club, and also a Boone and Crockett scorer.
Okay. All right. So the Wisconsin Buck and Bear Club.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. And that's a recognized institution or organization in Wisconsin.
Correct. Yep.
And this guy is a trained Boone and Crockett scorer.
And Wisconsin Buck and Bear, correct. But they use the same scoring system. Yep.
Okay. So it's same scoring system. Got
Yep.
it. All right.
Yep.
So he arrives at your house.
Correct. Yep. It's a Sunday night, probably about 8-9 o'clock. I have the rack sitting on the kitchen table.
And this
Comes
is
in.
several months since the deer was harvested.
Shot the deer in November, December. This was in January, I would say.
Okay. So a couple months later. Got it.
Yep. A couple months later.
Okay. So he comes
He
to your
walks
house. Yep.
Yep. He looks at the deer and he goes, "Man, I bet you're on the phone all the time, people knocking down your door." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, with a rack like that." And I said, "I really haven't showed it to anybody or, done anything." And I said, "Nope, the phone hasn't rang." So then, he just kind of talked to me a little bit, and my wife was there, and he brought another guy with him, and I do not remember what his name was. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he's thinking at that point that this is a big, big deer.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. He's basically telling me at this point, let's keep this quiet. Let's make some calls. We need Boone and Crockett to make the ruling on that break.
Okay. So he's trying to get the ruling on the break.
Yep. He didn't actually put a tape to it, just looked at it.
Okay.
He didn't do anything with it. Yep.
Gotcha. All right.
Yep.
And is he off, once he leaves your house, is he off to go see about getting it scored? Or
I don't think so.
Seeing if it could be.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did he do after that? What did Ashley do after that?
I think he gave me some numbers. He said, you got to contact Bruno Crockett. We need to get somebody from Bruno Crockett to look at it.
Okay,
And at
gotcha.
that point, I'm thinking he's thinking like a panel, or not set up as a panel, but, they need big, high-ranking Bruno Crockett people. And at this point, I'm pretty excited. Whatever, Bruno Crockett's going to look at my deer.
Yep.
So I contacted Bruno Crockett, and they basically kind of told me at that point that, we're really busy. We got our Pope and Young show coming up in Pennsylvania. So my choices were to either take the deer to Montana or to drive the deer to Pennsylvania, where they were holding the Pope and Young show that year in Hamburg.
Okay. And which did you choose?
Hamburg. Yep.
Gotcha. So you drove it did you drive from Wisconsin down to Hamburg?
Yep.
Okay.
I built the box.
Yep.
And put the rack in the box and lined it with carpet, and went in the back of the Explorer, and my dad and my stepdad and one of my good buddies decided to go with me.
Gotcha. And what month was this at that point?
Sorry, I'm bad with dates. I'd have to look back. It was either late February or early March.
Okay.
Is the rack still separated at this point?
Correct. Yep. Nothing's been done to it because, didn't want to put it back together without anybody making the call on the break.
Sure.
Right.
Okay. So you go down to the show, and who are you looking for at the show?
Well, Steve Ashley was actually at the show scoring deer or part of something there.
Okay.
So we get in town the night before, and Steve says, well, I'll give you a call tomorrow when they wrap up the things, and we'll let you know, and then you can come in and show them the deer. So we get a call, I think it's like 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yep.
It's held at a Cabela's.
Yep.
And we met them at like the back door. They said, bring it up through. It was really kind of weird because it was like security people, not security, but, just not run to cops. It's hard to explain. But basically, we met them in the back. We didn't bring the deer through the store or anything like that. And then we went up an elevator to the second floor where the scoring panel was going on for Pope Young.
Gotcha. Now, the Pope and Young, is that the same scoring system, or is it different?
Same scoring system, but that's just for bull kills.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah, but a lot of the people that do Pope and Young and Bruno Crockett.
Gotcha. So at this point, are you trying to get it scored, or are you just trying to see if it can be scored with the break?
Can be scored.
Okay.
Yep.
And what did you learn at that point?
Well, when we first got up there, we waited upstairs for a little bit, and then Jack, for now, Bruno Crockett came out. I think he had somebody else with him. I think it was one of the Heisies.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure. They came out, and Jack introduced himself and said, nice animal, nice to meet you. Well, we're going to take a look at it. Now you got to leave the room. So at that point, me, my stepdad, and my buddy, we kind of go wander around Cabela's.
Yep.
And I would say it took somewhere between an hour and a half. We got a call and says, you guys can come back up.
Did you buy anything while you were roaming around?
I think I got my first Cabela's card, and I got a free hat.
Awesome.
Signed up for a Cabela's card and got a free hat. Yep.
I tell you, they're master marketers, those guys. Just let them roam around for a while. They'll get a card and a hat. Nice. Gotcha. So you got the call. And was it Jack that called you?
No, Steve Ashley actually did.
All right. So Steve calls you back up and go
Come
back to the same room where they were doing the scoring.
Yep.
Okay.
Actually, I was a room off of that because a lot of the scores were still back in the other rooms.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And what was their conclusion?
Well, he basically told me, he said, looking at the break, it clearly fits inside.
Yep.
And without a question, we can score it. And then he also said, but as far as being considered a world record, he brought it to my attention that his thoughts were that the G2 or the G3 was going off the G2.
Okay.
And at this point, I learned a little bit about the scoring system, not a whole lot, but basically where the G2 and G3 meet at the common base, if you were to hold a straight line to where they perfectly meet, and if there's daylight in between, then it is a typical animal. And at that point, I brought it up, not being an official scorer, that kind of thing, because, and he kind of looks at me and he goes, well, if you have to look that close, it's not a point. So at that, it wasn't the best experience of my life. I'll put it that way. I mean, it was kind of short.
It was kind of short, abrupt, and this here's the
said,
facts.
This is my ruling. If you have to look that hard, then it's not a rule. Because I said, well, if you find the baseline, can you put a credit card on? If you see light, and he goes, well, if you have to look that hard, it's not a point.
And they're trying to talk about a separation between the 2 points. Is that what they're trying to refer to?
Yep.
Okay. And that was it. They just said, all right, see you later.
No, he did say that, and I didn't catch on to this at that point, but he's like, there's a lot of scorers here that have never seen a deer that big. So, and he goes, do you mind if they come in and take a look at it? So within a minute, I bet you 15 guys lined up and just walked through and kind of shook my hand and just said, that's amazing. That is one of the nicest animals I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But at this point, I'm feeling my, well, it's not a world record. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a great deer, but, I was kind of, I drove 1,200 miles, we drove through the night, switching drivers,
Right.
thinking it was going to be a different outcome.
Right.
So at that point, we decided to leave Cabela's, went and got a case of beer, and we had drank some beers at the hotel, and
Sure.
and then we decided to get up early, and we left about, in the morning and headed back to Wisconsin.
Gotcha. And you just assumed that was the case.
I assumed that was the case, correct.
Okay. And you just kind of let it rest.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So then my big concern was, I wanted to get something done with the deer because, Steve Ashley encouraged me to bring it to the Wisconsin Deer and Turkey Expo.
Yeah.
And that was either the end of March that year or the first week of April. Well, I didn't have time to get it fixed. I went around to a couple different people. Timeline was short.
Yeah.
So I brought it to the show broken, and basically I just put like a C-clamp around it to kind of hold it together.
Yep.
And they mounted it to a plaque. Well, actually, let me back up a little bit. When we got back, they said I could have it scored by the original score based on their ruling. I'm sorry about that. So
Yep.
The first thing I did is actually called the original scorer up, John Ramsey. We
Yep.
set up a time. He came to my house, had the family over. He scored the deer as a, not a 12-pointer, but as a 10-pointer because it would be the two abnormal points on each side.
Yep.
And came up with a 180 score.
Got it. Okay. So that's Ramsey's score at this point.
Correct.
Okay.
But one of his original scores, after the 60-day drying period, if they would have ruled that the G3 was not growing out the G2, it would have been a world record. It grossed 224
Yep.
and it netted 218.
Gotcha. And it's
So it went from 218 to 180.
218 to 180.
Yep.
And that's because they can't score or wouldn't score the G3
On either side.
on either side.
And the circumference.
Because it's not, they're not counting it as a point. So it shrunk it from a 12-pointer to a 10-pointer.
Correct. Yep.
Got it. All right. And is this the official score at that point, the 180?
Yes.
Okay.
He gave me a score sheet, and that would be the official Boone Crockett score.
Gotcha.
But
All
he
right.
did tell me when he scored it, he goes, well, do you want to put it in as a non-typical? Because I think it would have scored like 227 as a non-typical. And
Yep.
I'm like, no, I don't want to put it in the book as a non-typical because there's no way that this deer is a non-typical deer. I mean, if you look at it, it's a true 6x6.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty symmetrical on both sides.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's not one of those mangled messes that you would consider a atypical type of deer. Right.
Correct. Yep.
Gotcha. So what did you do with the score at that point? Were you thinking about, I'll just let it rest, that's it, I'll get it fixed, and we'll call it a day? Or what was going through your head at that point?
You mean as far as the score of the rack?
The score and the rack. You're going to get you thinking about getting it fixed?
At that point, he goes, you make the books, do you want to enter it? And at that point, I said, yeah, why don't you go ahead and enter it?
Okay.
And then I'm like, I didn't know where to take it. And at that point, I took it to a couple of different people asking questions, just didn't feel comfortable about how they were going to fix it, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So I took it to the deer show, which was shortly after that. Still broken. And then that's when I put the seat clamp on it, took it up to the scorer's booth, and they mounted it on a plaque. And then they put it like in a hall. And then basically people walk by and look at all the racks from that year.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's still not fixed at this point?
No, not there.
Okay. Gotcha.
So it didn't look the best.
Okay. It's not aesthetically as pleasing as it could be.
Yeah. Right. And and when they mounted it to the plaque, they put it down, so it didn't look near as enormous as it is when you actually see it in person.
Gotcha.
So if you were just a spectator, you would just say, well, that's what it is.
Right. So what's the plan at this point? Get it fixed and then get it scored again, or you're just leaving the score alone?
No, I was going to leave the score alone.
You're done. You're done with the score at that point. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know any better. It was just kind of a crazy 3-4 months, from the time that I shot it to going out to Pennsylvania, coming back to the show.
Right.
I'm definitely going to get the deer fixed, get it mounted, and enjoy it.
Okay.
So I'm at the Deer and Turkey Expo, and my sister was walking through with her husband through the show, and she brings me back this card.
Yeah.
And it was a card from the replicator. And they go, they want to talk to you later. I'm like, sure, yeah. So I make my way over there, and I get over there, and I introduce myself as Johnny King, and that's where I met Jay Fish.
Gotcha.
And Todd Fillinger.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And Jay says to you, nice
I can't
deer.
remember the exact words, but basically, you're getting screwed. So, yeah.
Sounds like what Jay would say. Yeah.
Yeah. And he just, he goes, come here, let me show you. He's asking me kind of what I'm telling you guys, what have you been through? He kind of heard bits and pieces about the deer. He's seen it out on display.
Yeah.
And, Todd, his friend, wanted, to replicate it. And they asked me, we're just talking, had a nice conversation. And at that point, Jay's just like, this isn't right. And that's where, you guys talked to Jay and Ron about last week.
Right. Yep. So the story continued on from there with Jay, and
Correct.
you sold the deer to Jay.
Not at that point. This was in 2007 at this point.
Okay.
Yep. And Jay gave me Tom Sexton's number out of Iowa.
Yep.
And he said, that's the guy you're going to want to have fix it.
Yep.
Me and Jay became friends with Todd and got to know a lot of people through that.
Yep.
Just kind of talking back and forth. So I had Tom Sexton fix the deer. And at that point, just meeting Jay, he's a taxidermist. He actually mounted the deer for me.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So Tom fixed it. Jay mounted it.
Yep.
And you kind of let it rest for a little while.
We were kind of talking about it, and Jay goes, well, at this point, let me, I know some people. So he sent some pictures to Buckmasters.
Yep.
And, he knows some people down there. And as soon as they got that, they contacted Jay, and they contacted me, and they go, we're flying up there. We need to see this here.
Yep.
So Mike Hanley, a real nice guy, got to meet him over the, just awesome guy.
Yep.
Grew up. That's what I was really appreciative about. They see a picture of it, and they took the time to come see me. It wasn't, I didn't have to travel around the country,
right,
that kind of thing.
Yep.
So they actually came to my house. Mike Hanley did, and Jay was down, and Todd, and Todd's brother Corey.
Yep.
And they scored the deer in my kitchen, and before he even put the tape to it, he goes, "It's a world record." So I'm pretty excited at this point, and he scores it and names it their new all-time #1 perfect category.
Right. Yeah, Buckmasters is a very good organization. They're very classy about how they go about it, I think.
Yeah, real great.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. So you've got the Buckmasters world record in your kitchen. You have the record for Buckmasters at this point.
Yep.
And Jay is there with you?
Yep.
Gotcha. So then when does and Jay's already kind of focused on trying to get this through.
Yeah, he's
Bruno
trying
Crockett.
to get me in touch with the right people.
Gotcha. He's trying to coordinate to get this scored correctly.
Yeah, and Jay's been a great guy through the whole thing. He was like, if you ever want to sell it, I'll buy it. But he was helping me out. It wasn't like pressure or anything. He was like, and Jay has other racks, and Buckmasters invited Todd, Jay, and my deer down to Buckmasters. And that year they had it in North Carolina.
Yeah.
So we got to go down there and go to their deer show, and it was a great experience.
Right. Gotcha. And Buckmasters has a great deal of big bucks, and they certainly scored yours as their champion, right? It still is your their champion,
Correct.
under their scoring system.
Correct.
And
basically, they score the same way as Bruno Crockett. They just don't count the inside spread.
Right. Gotcha. So from then on, you basically the controversy continued from there, and you're in the mix of it. And at some point, a couple of years later, a year later, you end up selling it to Jay.
In the meantime, I took it to a couple shows and things like that and let people see it. But, between the internet and the stories, and I wasn't that type of person to go on the internet. I would just read it, what people were saying.
Right. With
my job and other things that I'm doing, I didn't have the time to spend on it.
Sure.
So I was just looking at the deer one night, and, I'm like, it's not that I was being selfish, but I want people to see the deer. I don't have the time, the money, the resources.
Right.
So I called Jay, and I said, I'm ready to sell it to you. And this is why. And Jay understood.
Yeah.
And the great part about it is, a lot of times when a guy sells a rack, that's pretty much done. But, ever since day one, Jay bought the rack, and he knew, it was emotional. Went through a lot with it since 2006 till I sold it to him in, I think it was December of 2010.
Right.
But he kept me a part of everything. Hey, I got this contact. We're going to show it to him. And, like when you get done meeting with people, this guy thinks it's a, world record and this. And it was just great. It was a nice feeling. And, he was going to Texas and Ohio and things that I could have never done and letting people see the deer.
Right.
So it meant a lot.
Yeah. And he basically picked up where you left off with his resources and
knowledge of people.
And knowledge, right. All of his contacts in that, because he is a taxidermist. He knows where these things should go.
Correct.
And he put it on the parade, so to speak, and got it out there so other people could be aware. And he's still doing that today.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And it's nice to see that he involved you in all that stuff. Very, very commendable.
Yeah, I would say we probably, if not, twice a week, at least once a week.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. Good guy. Definitely. And so where do we go from here, Johnny? What do you want to see happen? Tough question.
Well, I want it to become the new world record.
Right.
And, the politics behind it. Because if you put 100 Bruno Crockett scores in a room by themselves, they would all say it's typical. I would say 99.9%. But when there's 100 people in a room, I guess what I'm trying to say is they don't have a backbone.
Right. They don't know how to stand up.
Right. They want to, but some of them want to.
Right.
And that's a great thing. I'm sure Jay and Ron told you about the Northeast Buck Club. They actually used the Bruno Crockett scoring system. And when they found out about the deer, they had Jay come out to the East Coast and they scored it. And, there was a lot of controversy or, feeling, well, am I going to get in trouble? But they had the backbone and did it and actually called out to Bruno Crockett and said, we're scoring this year as the Northeast Buck Club, our world record.
Gotcha.
Using the same scoring system.
Yep. So it became another recognized group's champion. So you've got two well-known groups saying it is the world record, and you've got one that has a long-standing tradition, and the eldest of all the groups saying no at this point.
Correct. Yep. But don't get me wrong, I've had a lot of fun since, I sold the deer to Jay. We get to go to some shows. We get to show people the deer. Let kids hold it. I mean, it's never been mounted. The original's never been mounted. We take it to shows, let people take a picture with it.
Right.
And it's just nice.
Right.
People thank us for that. And, they're like, well, why don't you guys ever mount it? Well, we mounted it, you couldn't hold it.
Right.
And for people to come up and little kids, I got all kinds of pictures. And I've actually had people send me back pictures with their kids on them with a nice little letter, thanking me. And it's like, that's awesome.
Yeah, that makes it all worth it.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Because
so,
me and Jay don't get paid to go to these shows. So basically taking on vacation time and on your own dime and just doing it because you want people to see it.
Gotcha.
Right.
So
is there any replicas of it out there, Johnny?
Yeah, there's some replicas. I actually have a replica. Jay made me a replica, so I have one.
Awesome.
So no matter what happens, Johnny, it's been a worthwhile experience.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's got
kind
to be.
Of another chapter in the book.
Another chapter in the book, right?
Yep.
And a great deer story and a great hunt, a great just hunting story, and just an all-round good story for the hunting industry. And there's nothing wrong with trying to shake it up a little bit.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. I think change is always good. Mm-hmm. And you know what? You may not ever get what you want, but it doesn't matter because it's still a great experience across the board. You are a champion in some of the most respected organizations in the country. And ultimately, as much as you'd like it to be the champion at the original, it's still a great buck across the board.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, and it's not even the point if it becomes their new world record.
Right.
I want the deer to be recognized as their world record.
Right.
To be honest with you, I don't know how I'd feel about actually putting it in the book.
Right.
But at this point, it's a politic game, and I don't think, and me and Jay don't think it's fair to the deer or a lot of the hunting community.
Right. Yep. At this point, it sounds like there is a great deal of politics behind the whole thing, and it really shouldn't be part of the deer scoring system, I guess, at the end of the day, right?
Right. I mean, it should be, about the hunter and the hunt and things like that and the deer and enjoying it, not fighting over it. Yep.
Right.
You're exactly right.
Yep. Well, Johnny, this has been fantastic, and we have been wanting to get the full story from Johnny King, himself, to tell us exactly the play-by-play of how it all unfolded that day. And you told it well, and thank you very much for doing that.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks for calling me.
Oh, our pleasure.
Awesome buck, awesome story. Absolutely.
Yep. And it put together the rest of the story of the Johnny King buck from where we started. It's kind of like we told it in reverse, like Star Wars, like we told the present day, and now we're going back in time to tell what happened before that. So that's awesome. And thanks again, Johnny, for spending an hour with us and going through every little detail. And hopefully, someday, hopefully you do get that thing scored at the original institution. But either way, it's still a champion to us. So keep up the fight, and we're behind you.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for your time.
All right, Johnny. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye. Well, Dusty, that was awesome. Just getting to the other side of the Johnny King story, the part we hadn't heard yet from Johnny himself, like the play-by-play. And Jay Fish told us what he knew of the story. But wasn't it awesome just to listen to the hunter tell the story?
Absolutely. Man, I could listen to a deer story every day of my life like that.
Yeah.
The rat getting broke and what's going on with it. When after the harvest and play by play of the hunt. I love a good deer story.
There's nothing better, and I just absolutely fall in love with the stories that people tell. And I've always loved them, just hearing like uncles tell them and friends tell them, or just people I don't even know going to a friend's deer camp, and just absolutely mesmerized by deer stories. I don't know what it is, but that's why we started this whole endeavor in the first place, was to allow a forum with a microphone to allow people to tell their story like they would to their best buddy.
Yeah, it's just like you're at deer camp, you know. It was like we were sitting on the porch. The hunt was over, and we got to replay it. It don't get no better.
No, it really doesn't. No, I love hearing that. And thank you to Johnny King again for spending some time with us to tell us the whole play-by-play just like that. Dusty, what's going on at Chubby Tines, and how can we find you?
Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. You know, we got a lot going on. People are putting trail cameras out. Hunters are, huntress. You know, it's starting to see the velvet rack develop. Man, that's a cool thing when they send in the pictures of the velvet racks, and they're telling a little bit about what they're doing to get the bucks into their setup, and you got the fawns out there. There's some awesome pictures of fawns coming in. You know, there's just a lot going on. The season is starting to feel closer and closer every day. And people are enjoying being outdoors. That's what it's all about, you know. What's going on over at the Big Buck Registry?
Well, that's awesome, Dusty. Actually, I think it's cool that you're getting some velvet racks coming in. People are tuning into they're picking their favorites right now. I've seen that a few times already. That's pretty neat.
There's nothing better than whenever, you know, the winter passes by and they lose their racks, you know, they shed their antlers, and now they're starting to get the new growth. And man, you see what kind of development's coming this season. Is it going to be that big monster that you're looking for? Is it going to be a management buck that you're going to take because the rack's not got potential?
Right.
He's pretty much the same as he was the year before. There's a lot there to take in and learn from what, your deer herd's doing right now.
That's awesome. Have you picked out your harvest for the fall yet?
Yeah, I think I have. I got to say I have. I don't want to speak too much about it because I don't know if this one particular buck's is exactly the buck that I'm hunting.
Yeah.
But I think that he's back and he's a frequent flyer. I'm going to start giving him frequent flyer miles to my trail camera.
Gotcha. All right. And what are the coordinates of where that deer's hanging out?
I think we're going to pass on that. But it's
what was
in
that?
Ohio.
You're coming in a little fuzzy. I can't quite hear you.
It's in Ohio on a creek bottom, and it's going to be hot this year. And if I can get this buck harvested, it's going to be a great year, really.
So basically, go to Ohio, go past the big rock, take a left at the tree, and you're there.
Yeah, 10-4 on the left at the rock, and go past the big tree.
Perfect.
I'm going to invite my good friend Jay Scott out to hunt my stand. And if you harvest him, we're having one big hog roast of a party.
Dude, I would not shoot your deer. There's no way.
I'd let you shoot it. I want you to shoot it, man. That's how I roll. I have somebody here to hunt my stand. I'm going to put you on the biggest, best buck I've got in the area.
Well, that's very honorable of you. I just don't know if I could do it, but I don't know. We'll have to cross that bridge when we get there, I guess.
Well, I probably agree that I don't know if you could do it. Coming from New Hampshire to Ohio, boy, it's going to give you that buck fever.
Yeah, I'd probably miss, dude. I really probably would miss. Yeah.
I would hope not, but there's always that chance. I think once you get in, and I like to say that I set myself up for a calm down period. I want to see the buck coming and get myself to calm down.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that inner hunter comes out, like that polished Jedi master that I've been working on for 40 years comes out, and I can actually slow down my thoughts and.
Yeah, I try to set my stand up, and people say, "Oh, you're crazy for doing this." But if I know there's a good buck in the area, I want to be in a spot where I can. It's not always the best spot. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But we'll hunt mature whitetails. This is going to be my tip for the night.
Okay.
When you hunt mature whitetails and being able to see what it is coming at you, and knowing that it's a nice mature 5.5-year-old that's got potential to be 150 plus. I'm not saying it happens like this all the time, because it doesn't. Whitetail are so unpredictable of how they're going to come into your setup. They could fall over a hill from behind me and be right on top of me, and I have no choice but to get excited, calm down, and settle in. And that's something I can adapt to, but it's that being able to see the buck coming and being able to calm myself down and be comfortable. I try to set myself up for that buck to walk into me and me be able to talk myself into settling down. And, I get excited. I'm not going to lie. Buck fever, it's true. It's adrenaline rush. It makes you do things that you after the first experience, I learned how to overcome it, calm down, settle in, and make a good kill shot, and harvest phenomenal whitetails. And it's been getting better and better and better, and I'm able to do it easier and easier and easier every time it happens. So that's my tip of the night. Give yourself some room where you can see what's coming and be able to settle into it.
Nice. That's a great tip. We got off on tangent there. You asked me what's going on at the Big Buck Registry. So
well, we went talking big whitetails, Ohio, and you wanted my coordinates, and
I know it's not unlike it's not unlike us to get on a tangent about deer hunting, but
right, yeah,
that's just the way it goes.
The Big Buck Registry, Big Buck Podcast.
Right. We are all about deer hunting tangents. That's what we do here. We're the best at it.
Absolutely.
Yep. But to answer your question, we've got some cool new things going on at the Big Buck Registry. We've got basically to submit your buck picture. There's a great way to do it. It's www.bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck. And you go to that page, and there's all the instructions on what we're looking for and what we're not looking for, and how to upload, and multiple ways to do it through an upload or a URL that you might have, or and if all else fails, just send us an email. It's just they've just been coming in droves lately. You can always try to do it through Facebook through the private message, but we prefer that you send it in this way. That way we can keep tracks of who's sending in what, and it's a little easier. You can actually do a drop down on what state you're in instead of having to ask a million times, well, what state was it in? Because that's one of the faults of when you just post one on Facebook, is that you usually forget to put what state it is, and I got to track you down before I can post it on the main page, which is the Wall of Fame, where you really want to be if you want to be famous for at least a day. So bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck. That's the best place to go to submit a deer. See if you'd like to call the show and leave some feedback, a question, some kind of feedback about the show itself, to 724-613-2825. And if you'd like to join our mail list, our email list, to let you know what's going on at the Big Buck Registry, who's going to be on the show next. You want to find out where we're going to be at, what shows we'll be at, all that kind of stuff. bigbuckregistry.com/huntmail, HUNTMAIL. I think that's about it, Dusty. Anything else?
No, I think that covers it, and thank you to the listeners for, downloading this podcast. And man, we sure do look forward to the next episode with you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for tuning in to the Big Buck Registry. We can't do it without you. Keep tuning in. Tell your friends. Listen to it on your way to work. Tune it up, turn it up, whatever you got to do. But we'll be here again next week.
I suggest that they crank it up.
Crank it up. Roll down the windows. Let your friends hear it. And when they say, "What's that?" you say, "It's the Big Buck Podcast." That's what that is.
Absolutely. And they're going to be like, wow, listen to them guys. They know what they're doing.
Yep.
They're giving you phenomenal information. And we're hoping to take your hunt to the next level.
Absolutely. That's what we're here to do. We want to help you get a little better, because I'm trying to help myself. Dusty's trying to help himself. And in the meantime, maybe you'll learn a few things too.
Absolutely. Well, this is the Big Buck Registry, Big Buck Podcast, and I'm Dusty Phillips.
This is Jay Scott, and we'll see you next week.
Can't wait.